Call to order and roll call.
Commissioner DeVries? Here. Chair Frederickson?
Here.
Commissioner Goss?
Here.
Commissioner Keith?
Here.
Commissioner Kress?
Here.
Commissioner McCoy?
Here.
And Vice Chair Chores?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, everybody, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Lori, would you mind leading us tonight?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Everybody can be seated. All right, approval of minutes. Regular meeting minutes and consideration of review and approval of regular meeting minutes of the September 9th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All righty. 2, consideration of public comments. Those wishing to address the Planning and Zoning Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decision at a later time pursuant to ARS 38-431. Any comments from the public? I see none. Thank you. All right, reports, past council action. Richard?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, before I get past council action, I just would like to introduce our new planner, Harry Lightness. He's comes from Farmington, New Mexico. Well, that's where he last worked, but he's been all over. He worked actually in Los Alamos, which is where Harry Jepson used to work at one time, although they didn't work together. So he has a lot of experience, and we're glad to have him on board. This is his second day, so he's just
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
learning the old zoning ordinance and
Yes.
getting up to speed. So. The first item is the past council action, and that was the changes to the corner side yard setbacks in several zoning districts. The council did agree to change the R16, R18, R110, RR districts to the recommendations of 5 and 10 feet. They changed R120 corner side yard setback to 15 feet and R140 to 20 feet. So that is effective as of November 1st. So if there's any questions, I'll just move on to the next report. Okay. Next item is just report on our APA State Planning Conference that myself, Gary, and Terry attended in Oro Valley in September. And so it was an excellent opportunity for planners and the planning zoning commissioners to learn about current practices in the planning field and network with professionals across the state. We attended multiple sessions. We attended a session on the Planning Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment 101, which is kind of your general things that you do as boards and commissions. We talked about opportunity zones, which is important here in Kingman, downtown revitalization through visioning, zoning design and public-private partnerships, complete streets, density and design and home builder decision-making, and we talked about mobile home and RV parks and the future of affordable housing. And there may be a few other items you guys attended as well. I don't know if you want to elaborate on anything, but we thought it was I think, well worth your time to attend and to see.
Well, I think Terry and I probably came away with our heads exploding with all the ideas, and I think we were really, I can't even remember now, the city down there in Arizona that really took control of their downtown, because of course they're fairly new, and they had displays of the brick and mortar stores and then how they went about changing them, and they put pictures up, and you try to picture whose this building is, and then so forth, and we just came away so overwhelmed with ideas, and hopefully some of these ideas we can implement here sometime in the future. but it was very, very worthwhile, I think, and we enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah, I think it went very well. I think that was Cave Creek.
Yep.
Cave Creek, you know, they had a unique concept on how they wanted their downtown to look. Like you said, they're pretty new in their development. You know, we're kind of an older community here, but I liked their take on how they got the work done. Is they utilized college students on, you know, to come in that was going into the planning and zoning, and had them work up a plan and figured out, you know, where the heart of the town was. You know, I think we should probably, you know, explore that, you know, check out different universities and see if, you know, there's a group that wants to take on Kingman as a project and present it.
It's a good idea. Okay. Let's see, moving on to the next report on the Kingman zoning ordinance update workshop. We did held our first public workshop on September 18th. We had several members of the city commissions, including planning and zoning commission members, Chair Frederickson and Shores attended. About a dozen people were there. Roger Eastman from Lisa Wise Consulting, our consultant on the zoning ordinance, was there, as well as Carl Eberhard, who is an architect from Flagstaff, and he discussed the historic overlay district. We discussed the audit and recommendations report for the current zoning ordinance, and I won't read through all these things in the memo, but all of this is going to be addressed in the zoning ordinance update, and we continue to work with our consultant on a weekly basis. We have phone conversations with them about every 2 weeks. I've been sort of working through the definitions that are updating in our zoning ordinance, as well as trying to work on the uses. We have a lot of, we have like 12 different versions of offices in our zoning ordinance. So we're trying to pare that down a little bit, trying to get it a little bit more user-friendly and a little bit simpler. And then going through the actual organization of the zoning ordinance as well is something we've been working on. So we don't have another workshop planned, at least a date planned at this moment, but we will have another workshop coming up in the next few months.
Thank you.
That's all I have for the reports.
All righty. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Item number 4A, conditional use permit, CUP 19-0004. A request from Pilot Travel Centers LLC applicant and Ben LaParney of Kingman Plaza LLC, property owner, for an expansion modification of a conditional use permit for an existing truck stop. The subject site is Zone C-free, commercial service business, and is located at 3300 East Andy Devine Avenue. The conditional use permit request is to allow for the expansion of the truck parking area onto a portion of the former Kmart property located north of the existing Flying J truck stop. Other modifications include the relocation of the truck scale and changes to the flow of truck traffic entering and exiting the site. The subject property is described as lots 4 through 7 of the Kingman Air Rail Manor, third amended, Section 8, T, 21N, R, 17W of the G and SRM.
Mr. Chairman, this afternoon we met with the property owner, Mr. LaParn, as well as representatives from Pilot on some of the concerns that we raised through the report. They're trying to address some of these comments, as well as ADOT was actually at the meeting too. ADOT has comments that were sort of not included within the report. I will let them speak, but I believe they are requesting a tabling of this item and would probably bring this back in December when some of these comments and concerns were addressed. So I'll sit down for the moment.
Good evening. I'm Brad Alsop from Pilot Travel Centers LLC. And as Rich mentioned, we would like to table this item so that we can address the staff's comments and ADOT comments and hopefully come back with a better recommendation from staff. I think everything is able to be worked through. We just got some details that we need to address and didn't have time from the time we got the staff report until now. So I would respectfully request that you table this until a future meeting.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Can I ask, even though it's going to be tabled, I'd like to know what some of the ADOT input was today.
Okay, primarily it has to do with the way that trucks and cars, but specifically trucks, are going to be entering the property. What we're proposing to do is reverse the flow of traffic within the property so that it relieves congestion at the intersection, puts all the stacking for the truck fueling onto our property, which I think everybody agrees is a good thing. It's just working out the details of how trucks are going to enter and exit and make sure that that is done in a way that accomplishes what we need operationally, but also what protects public safety.
Was ADOT supportive of the reverse in the traffic flow?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
See none. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to table.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you. We'll move on. Item B, discussion of site triangles intersections. The issue of site triangles and driveway visibility was raised at the August 13th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It was requested that this item be brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission for discussion. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Once again, this is just a discussion item on site triangles and intersection visibility. So within our zoning ordinance currently, this is the current language in regards to site triangles. And I'll just read through it quickly. To ensure that no driving hazards exist, a site triangle shall be observed at all street intersections or intersections of dedicated alleys with streets or intersections of driveways with streets. There shall be no visual obstructions as herein defined within the site triangle. And the site triangle is defined as a line on a horizontal plane connecting two points measured 25 feet from the back from each direction of the street, of the two streets, a street and a dedicated alley, or a street and a driveway intersection, thus forming a triangle. Within that side triangle, the height of mature landscaping without pruning, walls or fences cannot exceed 3 feet. Measured from the top of the existing curb grade or crown of the abutting road, whichever is lower. Within the side triangle, trees shall be permitted as long as only the tree trunk and no leaves or limbs are visible between the ground and 8 feet above the ground, except during early growth stages. The foregoing provisions are not applicable to the buildings that existed before the ordinance was adopted, nor to utility poles or supporting members, or to areas of the historic overlay district or to other design review districts. So this is the side triangle it's referencing in the zoning ordinance, just a diagram showing what that looks like. And there's a number of pictures that were provided by Commissioner McCoy that they're in the presentation here. This is, if you're familiar, this is Keno and Stockton Hill Road. This is Starbucks corner. So typically you'll see a lot of traffic signal poles and control boxes within the site triangle. That's sort of unavoidable because the control boxes do need to be located near the signal, and right-of-way constraints often determine where the equipment can be located. According to the city engineer, the city does try to place control boxes on the least impactful side of the intersection, generally where right-turning vehicles are not site restricted, although in this case, this is the right side. So this is a bit of an obstruction here. The city also has a 25-year franchise agreement with Unisource, and the agreement has general language regarding public benefit convenience. The city has worked in the past with them to relocate large utility boxes near intersections. This is a box near driveway there off of Keno. I didn't go out and measure to see if this was in the site triangle or not, but it's relatively close to the intersection. And these are a few other photos.
It's in Mojave Mental Health and
On
Northern
Western.
Arizona Medical.
Again, some utility boxes in that side triangle area. And then some photos downtown. Of course, this is the Elks Lodge. Obviously, you got the trees here on the corner. That is a bit of an obstruction with the light pole. I believe, obviously, the building's been there long before the side triangle was in effect. The trees have probably been there a long time as well. I know our traffic safety committee is kind of taking a look at this intersection because it is problematic with the traffic that goes through there. It doesn't stop at Oak Street. It goes through at 4th. There is street parking in that area, and you do have to be careful when you're driving through that area. And then this is Wellby Mountain Road. Again, you do have a tree here, probably very likely in the side triangle in this area here. Another issue we need to address. So I don't know if there's any questions or you want further discussion on the matter, but this is just for your information at this point and some discussion.
I have a question. Is 25 feet a standard municipal measurement for side triangles?
Side triangle. That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Probably something we'd want to take a look at, especially with the zoning ordinance update. See if it's kind of a standard or if it's unusual.
Is this going to only be in the commercial area or the residential as well?
It could be in residential or in commercial.
So what's happening essentially is, and I think Unisource and ADOT are two of the biggest offenders with these cabinets, which could be buried. They're choosing to just put them wherever they want to put them. And if you pull up behind the curb and stop like you're supposed to, that's what you see in a lot of areas in Kingman. Mm-hmm. And then when some of this street landscaping matures, you can't see through them. And so depending on the type and size of vehicle that you're driving, and in my instance, in my shred truck, downtown especially, I can't see unless I pull halfway out into the street. And it is an issue all over town.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just a regular vehicle. So.
It's not just an issue with this type of thing, it's also an issue with block walls in the residential areas.
Exactly.
And that's why I was asking, is this going to affect residential areas as much as it's going to affect, because the corner visibility in a lot of residentials are the same issues.
Yeah, and I agree with Scott and Lori. If you are trying to pull back behind the sidewalk in order to turn, you usually can't see. You usually have to pull up through like where a crosswalk area is. And then with the homeless people, I mean, sometimes they're walking across different ways without looking, and you have to be in the crosswalk to even be able to see to turn. So.
Now, is this affecting streets that are coming onto like a major street, or is it just intersections?
Well,
Or is it all of them?
It's any intersection, street intersection, any driveway or alley and street intersection. It's applicable to any of those areas.
Yeah, because there's a really bad one, and it's on Wells and Airway. And when you're trying to turn either direction, you have a great big, huge utility pole, and I'm talking, this is a huge utility
All those
pole.
big steel ones.
Yeah, with a box right behind it, and it's like, and then there's shrubbery, from the property that's grown into it. I mean, you can't even walk past there. You have to go around into the street.
Well, and even main ones like Gordon and Stockton Hill, like there are so many boxes and signs, even on that one right there, that you have to pull way out.
Yeah.
Rich, sorry, is there a plan of attack for this? I mean, obviously, we're not going to do anything today, but my question is there a committee being set up for this, or a subcommittee that can look at the worst areas first and address them one at a time? What is the long-term look at how we're going to handle this?
Well, we can certainly bring this item up to our consultant, and we could look at, as mentioned, we could look at other cities and how they handle it. Is there some way to get, I think there's been some cooperation in the past with Unisource to relocate boxes and things like that. I would say that's probably something we could look at as part of the zoning ordinance update and see how we can improve the current ordinance and address the conditions that we see out in the community.
Okay, thank you.
What is the enforcement mechanism?
Like a lot
Neighborhood
of things,
services?
it would be, it would be, since it's within a zoning ordinance, it's really our department. So if there's a complaint, we would investigate it and determine if it's valid, and then we'd make contact with whoever owns the property, or I guess if it's a utility box, we'd have to talk to Unisource and see what options they would have to relocate that facility.
Completely unscientifically, I bet if you look at 20 intersections in town, and no matter if they're very small residential or Gordon and Stockton Hill, if you look at 20 of them, I'll bet 10 to 15 of them are out of compliance.
Yeah. Okay, my next question would be, is this going to be complaint driven? I would hope not.
This already exists.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
enforcement.
Most people don't know that they can complain about this, and so it's not enforced. And it's been free reign for utilities and the state to just do what they want to do.
I did ask our engineering department about a franchise agreement. Is there any discussion about that in there? And they didn't say. He said there's nothing in there specifically, but they have on some occasions worked with us to move things out of the site triangle. So we can certainly approach them on that and maybe identify some of the more problematic locations. And again, with the zoning ordinance update, we can see what's best practices in other communities
Okay.
and moving forward, we can do that.
I could see this would be an all-day job, just having someone driving around over the cities, because I can already picture developers, home-built developers are in violation of this too. So it would be probably more than an all-day job.
Landscaping is a huge problem.
Yeah.
A lot of these can be ground level. There's no reason to do this.
Right.
It's sitting on a big piece of cement, isn't
Rich?
it?
Is there any further questions of Richard?
Chairman, if I could, having spent a few years in the utility business, the challenge with these that you're looking at are normally what they call switching cabinets. And so this is where they culminates from several different feeding directions. They come up inside these cabinets. And unless the technology has changed, Commission, this is done above ground, not below ground. And it's for a particular reason, for any water issues or anything like that. So, and so that's the real challenge in these. They also, I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the franchise agreement, but it allows, because they have a franchise agreement with most cities, the utility companies are allowed to work in the easements without permits. Okay, so they don't have to go through the process all the time to either put in or to take things. Now, I would think that if we're gonna move these, it's gonna be a very interesting conversation with Unisource, because this is really expensive stuff.
Yep.
These cabinets, these switch cabinets, if they're on the pole, for example, when you guys look and you see a pole and you see that line that goes, those little arms that go up, and you see a rake like that and well, at least years ago when I was still in the business, that was like about a $500 or $600 switch. These here are on the average of about $15,000 to $20,000 for the same thing on the ground, because of all the protection you have to provide. This, I guess, in many ways was considered the sacrifice that's made for putting the utilities underground. So, but I think you're right. In key locations, then we sit down with the utility and have that heart-to-heart talk if we truly are creating a hazard on the roadway. But so it's not without its challenges. I would just say that. But is it worth the conversation? Sure, absolutely.
I do know that if you go to Scottsdale, you typically don't see this. It's all underground vaults.
Yeah.
So that is also an option, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah,
Although expensive.
it's very everything's gets pricey the minute you even start
Exactly.
below the surface. It changes everything. Scottsdale does something very unique, though, Commissioner. They have a franchising fee, and what they do is they lay that money aside every year, and then they determine what neighborhoods what next lines are going underground, and so they apply that to make it happen for the town, and so they just reverse that franchising fee.
Right.
I believe here our franchising fee just goes into the general fund as opposed to being set aside for maybe things like this in particular. So where the community chooses to say, we don't want to see that.
So are there other taking that into consideration, is there other options for these boxes that are already in place that would be less costly but open up the vision of the intersection? Are we
I
looking at
think
that as
that the
well?
biggest expense would be in if you have to if that area it has to maintain that box and it has to be there, in moving it, it's always the splicing. Because underground cables, just to give you an example, let's say an overhead line is about this big that would carry X number of current. Underground, that cable would be that much bigger because of the heat issues that it disperses off of the electric line. So splicing and everything, and all splices have to be sealed in a particular way. So usually what they'll normally do like this is if that had to be moved, they would go back to the next connecting point, pull in all brand new wire to bring it to the new box. So that's why there's going to be some costs.
Well, or like I said, is there other options we should be looking at, like the intersection itself? Weighing out the cost differences between the two. I mean, is there another option for that intersection, the way the traffic flows?
Oh, yeah.
Well, many of these are private driveways
Okay. All
Or
right.
on a corner, usually.
or on
Yeah,
corners.
yeah.
Well, I know Keno in Stockton Hill, it's a very high traffic area, and there's accidents there almost every day.
It's like music when you're in Starbucks.
Yeah,
You can hear the crashes.
yeah.
Well, I think Rich was right. One of the things that is certainly is another one of those considerations as we move forward with the consultant on the new stuff. But, to open up the conversation with Unisource is probably certainly worthwhile so that, if there's anything in an intersection today that's being planned, we can, that's just, that maybe that is not acceptable. How can we move this thing back before all that digging and there's usually a conduit system involved, okay? So this stuff is not direct buried like phone lines. And so that's where this all gets really expensive.
Understandable.
Just points of information for you.
Thank you.
I'll open this up to the public. Any comments from the public? All righty, closed? All right. Any further discussion?
Good, thank you.
Do we want to make a motion for
Adjournment,
For what?
future
For the future?
discussion, or,
not
Let it-
adjournment.
Well, they're going to talk to
okay,
the involved parties about any future development, putting them out of a site triangle, and we won't have this issue going forward.
everything that you got answered?
Yes.
All righty.
Well, they're gonna, staff is gonna report back what other municipal areas do for site triangles, 25 feet or bigger, smaller. I'd
I
just
believe
like
that
to
is
get
a standard. I've
think
read
so.
it in some others too.
Ready, fair enough. All right, announcements by commission members, limited to announcements, availability, or attendance at conferences and seminars, requests for agenda items for future meetings, and requests for reports from staff. No discussion on any of these items. Any questions? I see none. All right, I need someone make a motion
I'll
for
make a
adjournment.
motion for adjournment.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.